probably come across. Now, one of the questions that is posed to us, and I would invite those who are the panelists to step into this, but I will probably go Ms. Cynthia first on this one. And the question is a very interesting question, and it says, some teachers had difficulties putting over their subjects to the students with face-to-face teaching. Some teachers had difficulties. And the question I'm asking you is called for a very subjective view, but at the same time, is something for you to think about and mull about and talk to us about. Do you think you would improve in the current medium? And the question is, how would such a teacher improve? Notice what the question is. Some teachers had difficulties in putting over their subjects in a face-to-face modality. And the question is, do you think such a teacher would improve in the current medium? And the question again has asked, follows that is, how would that impact on the students? And I assume that the question that was posed by someone outside of our panel would involve how would the fact that we have some system impact on it, but also involve how would the improvement of the teaching impact on our students. So, Ms. St. Hill, I would invite you to begin with that. The other questions will come, so let's begin with that. Let's target you with this one. Welcome again.
Thank you so very much for having me. And I'm happy that we have started on that question. To be quite honest, I had prepared a whole long introduction in terms of explaining to our viewers the difference between synchronous and asynchronous and so on, but I think we can speed along. Yes, teachers did experience quite a few difficulties in this new environment. And I think most persons would agree that it is not only here in Barbados, but it is a global phenomenon where this is something new to all of us. Every one of us, it is something new. So from the primary, from the nursery, right through to our tertiary level institutions in terms of our universities, yes, we have had difficulty because it is new. We are not accustomed to the distance teaching that we are now into. And you would appreciate then that it would call for us to adapt our teaching strategies and so on, as well as to help to bring our children along. And at the heart of it, the most important is helping our students to still develop to get what is required in terms of the education system. And I really think that we have done wonderful in Barbados in terms of our students. Yes, we know that there are loopholes, and yes, we know that we are still having some difficulties. Nevertheless, in terms of the new normal, where I have seen from nursery students right through to tertiary level students still being able to benefit, I think that that is good. So in terms of would such a teacher be able to improve? Certainly. Because not only is our Ministry of Education helping in terms of a number of teaching videos and resources, but we also have our Teachers College, which is also helping to propel teachers along and expose them to what is necessary in this learning, this new normal. So I am of the opinion that even though we started on a weak note, you would have appreciated that we had our first stunt during the March to July last year situation. So this is our second rung. And it is my view that we have done even better in this rung. There's still some gray areas. You brought up many of them, but yes, they will be able to improve. And how, as I said before, through helping each other along, both within the schools that we're at, as well as other teaching resources that we are now trying to push in terms of teacher engagement and teacher empowerment. So that is my answer. I hope I have answered correctly in terms of the question asked.
Well, let me say that there's not so much a correct answer.
That's Tutsi.
You've offered a perspective.
That's Tutsi going back in.
And in offering that perspective, I was really tempted to, which really had to do with, back to the original premise, that you have some teachers who had difficulties putting over their subjects in the face-to-face mode. And so the question that would arise, what follows that, is whether in some respects might we not have put the cart before the horse. In other words, we didn't anticipate a COVID-19, that is correct, but this is several years now since in Barbados, a program was introduced into our education system known as EduTech. I know you've taught long enough in the system that. The question that arises is if as an organizing teaching management system in our minds, why were we caught or so much off guard? In other words, are we waiting now that we have to go online to get our teachers to teach in a system when they had difficulties before? And therefore, there are all kinds of other issues, such as, for example, teacher certification, a lot of questions that arise. But I'm not going to hold you any long again, but there are a number of issues that arise, certainly, when it comes to this. We do with not only with students' capacity to learn, but it has to do with teacher competency. And we're not sitting here as a legal tribunal trying to hamstring our teachers or condemn our teachers, but this question of online teaching seems to call for a lot more than I think the authorities and even the teachers have anticipated. But you've answered quite well. You have a note of optimism there, and I want to share that with you. That improve, and those who have had difficulty, and I think in many schools those teachers are. But before I go any further now, let me identify another question. And this goes to what I call not so much the technician in the room, but certainly it goes to the person has some information on the whole question of the technology. I'm just trying to get the papers together, yes. Dealing with Brother Millington. I'm coming to him because I see that his qualifications are in the area of the technology and other areas. And the question really, I have a number of questions here, but I want to pack a question for you. And it has to do with identifying. Can you identify it for us? Some of the difficulties that teachers and students might have in adapting to this new environment.
Okay, let me say good afternoon to everyone, and I am happy to be here. I think one of the major issues that face children today using SAT systems, if we stretch our minds a little bit far back, one would see that the uses of the cell phones, the tablets, the computers have always been in a sense of pleasure, a sense of play. And with the advent of COVID-19, we're now finding those children having to use these devices that were used for games and fun to be taken serious in a educational environment. And this is where you're now finding especially the attention span. It's also noticed sometimes the children, although they may be in the class, they're still on their phones, they're still listening to music and so forth. And I think this is one of the major issues that I think will not only be affecting children, but also teachers in terms of getting that communication going, the attention span, just that culture habit that children currently have using technology. it is, I guess it's okay to say that with the second lockdown, quite a few children are still, or many children most probably familiar with using the technology, but you still have that general problem where getting children to class on time, have them focus, and again, back to attention span. Another issue I see is the major issues of the lack of support offered to teachers and children in the event of technical issues. Um, I'm a parent at the St. Gabriel's, and from time to time, my group, we do have parents who are at school, maybe the grandmother is at home, and they are having sometimes issues to troubleshoot, not being able to come online, no audio, not being able to connect. Teachers are also in the same position where they're not familiar with the technology. And I'm thinking that if a process has been put in place, like my daughter's school, where some of us who are technical or have the knowledge to help troubleshoot these issues, we all come together and try to play our part in helping not only teachers but also children. Um, I'm sorry that let me get the correct name, that the chief educational officer or acting educational officer was not here. Where you can take this recommendation where there need to be a resource or resources put in place and a process where if teachers and students are having issues, that one can come in remotely from the school environment to help troubleshoot some of the issues that they are having from a technical perspective. Um, I don't think I may need to get into any cyber or anything issues at this point, but I really think that from a technical support, no, maybe not having enough bandwidth with sticking audio. I'm actually hearing some teachers actually speaking very quickly. So in the event where, like for me, myself, I slow down when I'm talking on these systems because I'm familiar with the bandwidth issues where you have the breakage in audio. And sometimes you hear children say, "Mom or sir, we lost quite a bit what you said." And because of that lack of communication and involvement in the session, sometimes teachers might not even know how much of the content has been lost. If it's a couple of seconds, something's close to 10 seconds, and they're not able to keep track of that there. So I think that the technical issue is a very worn issue. I think it's something that needs to be looked at. And as you did mention with the EduTech, I personally, as a parent, was hoping that we would have moved to the next level with ICT in Barbados and in the Caribbean, where any event like this that will happen, that we are very well prepared for. Um, for me, as a person coming up in the internet service provider environment, I don't find it very surprising that something like this could happen. And what I mean by that, it might not have to be a pandemic. It could be a situation where, let's say that, the island could have been hit with maybe a good earthquake, or most likely a hurricane that really affected the infrastructure quite a bit. Children may be able to get on the service using um, mobile technology, etc. And then maybe a situation where they need to learn from at home. So having these processes in place, I think, would have been great if this was a couple of years ago. I'm not quite sure if it answered your full questions. Anything need to me to elaborate? But yeah, thank you.
Most thank you very much for your response. I mean, I expect that as the evening goes on, you'll have other opportunities to share more with us. But that's quite all right. As I said, we're not looking for a university style answer. I really on the issues that our students and our teachers are facing, and I think you are well placed in your own capacity, technical capacity, to identify for us some of the issues that need to be addressed, and the fact that you opportunity to do some things. We're not charging our tools or ministries with having the word not done enough to prepare, because there's not everything we can prepare for. But certainly in the context of the of online and online education, we had been in fact been projecting a time that will come when we would in fact be doing a lot of our teaching. And it seems a bit strange that having considered that some of the technical issues that might arise would need to be addressed before we got to this. But nevertheless, as we go on, there'll be more that we'll have to look at. I
If I
am
may add,
looking now at our sure, go right ahead.
right, I'd like to add one last piece.
Go right ahead.
Well, we know from over the last couple of years, a lot of children has been very familiar in using technology. Even my daughter, believe it or not, I don't even like tablets. I don't even have one. And I have seen her mom really encourage her to use a tablet in her spelling, in other areas. And what I notice in her development, she's now getting ready to do the 11 plus. Children are more familiar with the technology. They want to use the technology. So I'm thinking that this is really education system really needs to prepare itself for. I think that the children are at that point of change, but that change is more in the fun of using these devices than actually learning. So I think that when I say late, is in reference to you have a new generation that is so digitally inclined. I think the education system is a little bit behind time in terms of how you teach now to these students.
Thank you very much for those additional comments. I sometimes am a little embarrassed that my daughter, I have to call her sometimes when I have some technical issues on the computer to fix them for me. At the same time, however, I think that while we admit that are often more technically advanced, that's only one side of the coin. The other side of the coin has to do with the question of the teaching learning transaction. And I think that in many, we also make some assumptions about them, about their capacity to work in this environment. They're very technically adroit. They can maneuver. I see in fact, I said that if I had believed in evolution, which I don't, I will say that the next generation will have an additional thumb, because the way how they use their thumbs to maneuver around a keyboard on a phone, I can't get it up to finger, man pointing and punching things. That's where it is. So they have that capacity, but this, anyhow, I'm going to shift my attention to Mr. Eastman, and I'm going to pose a couple of questions to him. Now, I'm not posing these questions to him necessarily from the point of view of TVET, but it will have some. No, the question that comes here, and the question is posed to us earlier. What on the question of the preparation of students who are doing studies, which have a practical component? Assume that we mentioned TVET, that we're dealing with what we may call non-traditional, here, some non-traditional areas of education. And for those students who are doing something have a practical component, and incidentally, there are other traditional subjects, if I use that term at all, such as chemistry and physics, that have a practical component. But in terms of what we call non-traditional subjects, and or subjects that you often don't in our school systems, there's this issue. And my question to you, Mr., has to do with, are we currently well prepared in our education system to deal with those students when it comes to the question of those subjects that have a practical component?
Well,
so you can move from that and broadcast into other areas.
As far as technical education is concerned,
yes, sir,
we were caught napping. Even though in the Polytechnic has some online training in the evening programs, the practical component, which overlaps both technical and academic education, a lot of the teachers, I know BVTV especially because I sit on that board, a lot of the teachers really can't handle the computer for simple matters. so there has to be training. And I know for technical teachers, how to use this, the technology presents plenty opportunity, things that we didn't have. There can be a lot of simulation, there's YouTube. So teaching instructors and teachers how to use the YouTube. I still teach physics because I'm a physics teacher. And I find in the online teaching where I have difficult concepts, I just pull up a YouTube video and share the video with the students and they can watch it. Things like demonstration of waves, how to carry out certain experiments, the simulation is there, almost everything. So when you come to things like plumbing and you want to change an American sink or American bowl, everything is there on YouTube. There are several big platforms like Adaptation and them, so that you can find almost everything, and the three-dimensional aspect is shown. But it is for teachers to know how to use these things and pull the software and pull the things together and prepare a lesson. I think that is what the problem is. Our teachers were not prepared for that in technical education. So we know that there has to be a practical component for the training, but there also has to be a practical component for the assessment. And our external verifiers, right now, we run a world skills school competition, juniors. And we are discussing now how that can happen in the COVID environment. We are not stopping. You can have students compete right there in their own school, and you are recording it and it can be streamed live. It doesn't have to be a face-to-face competition with everybody in the same place anymore. I think that's how we're going to do it. So if you're looking at food preparation, you can have a streaming of the student at large school competing with a student at St. Lucie Secondary, with a student at St. Michael's, with a student at Bradley Adams. All that can be happening at the same time and live, and we can join it as we hear in this meeting. The public can join and see what is going on and look at the competition, as well as the judges can look and judge. So there's plenty of opportunity, but it, like everybody else, even the university, it caught us napping. I think that once the training is given and people move up and see how useful the technology is, I don't think we'll be going back. I don't think we'll ever be going back. This thing has impacted us, but it is going to change teaching, learning, and assessment for a long, and several things will not come back. It's going to change. Universities will change, schools will change, technical institutions will change. So it provides plenty of opportunity, but we have to be prepared to embrace the technology, embrace the change, and put the investment in upfront. I know that the youth, they are ready, they are willing, but it is the older generation, the teachers and things that need to get up to speed with the technology. That's the major challenge. So we have adopted in the Additive Council, we've introduced e-portfolios. So you produce a portfolio, you produce it and submit it electronically. Like how CXC has introduced ESP, we have gone that way, and that was even before the pandemic.
So,
can I jump in here and say a word? Can I jump?
We are not hearing the chair. He is muted.
Well, Mr. Hill.
Yes, please. I just want to say that in the schools, I want to agree with Mr. Eastman as well as Mr. Militant that in the schools, we are also having that challenge, especially in the sciences, the home ec area, the industrial arts, PE, where the practical aspect of it, we are being challenged in terms of assessing. How do we best go about that assessment? And all I know, we are still trying to grapple with coming to an answer that will not disadvantage our students. And yes, we too have gone to e-portfolios in some cases, but we still need to have the training in place for both the teachers and the students. So I know that, yes, EduTech was around for a long time, but this is a new situation altogether. And it is something that I think that as we go along, we will embrace a lot more. I don't think we're going to go back to simple face-to-face without incorporating a lot of what we are doing now. And I do agree that remote intervention is good. And I say that because, again, I am fortunate to have my son who is very good in terms of the computer. So he comes on the computer at any minute. He says, "Mommy, I'm coming on." So maybe we need to have a division in the ministry where we can have people remotely intervene and help solve some of the problems that we are all experiencing, because it's going to take a while before we actually get this thing really perfect or even near perfect. Thank you.
If I may,
Thank you
Chair,
very much.
if I may, Chair, even when we go back to face teaching, I can see a situation where children have their other laptops or whatever device they have in the classroom, and the teacher can be sharing videos or simulation material with them. There are certain university sites you can go and it will simulate all the practicals that you do at the KFNC site level. I know for physics, and I know in some instances you can do that for chemistry, even if you don't have the equipment right in front of you, and that goes a long way. So even when you go back to face, the technology, you wouldn't just drop the technology, you'll be integrating it in your delivery and in your assessment.
From what it seems to me, if I had gone back into the school, this classroom setting, I'd be obsolete. It seems to me that that is what would have happened, because in all that we've said thus far, our actual organizing principles has to do with the question of teacher training and teaching. And it seems to me that that is one of the elephants in the room now. This is not an indictment on teachers. It is simply to recognize the reality that faces our teachers in the classroom situation. The syllabuses that have been developed at all levels, whether it's syllabus for the combination examination, whatever, those syllabuses were never developed with online teaching in mind, or any aspect of it in mind. Those who have to go to the drawing board have got to go. It can't be just a matter of the classroom experience. It has to go right back to the core issues that have to be thought about when we're developing syllabuses or syllabi, depending on what you're talking about here. And when it comes to the whole question of even discussing teaching strategies, etc., you have to build those into your planning for what is going to be happening in the classroom. Before we go any further, however, we have a parent here. I'm a parent myself, and we're going to come after the parent. We're going to come to people who've been involved. I see him pensively and waiting for his turn. But then we also have teacher and the people. These are involved every day at another level, at the level of those young people who are going on. We're going to get to that. But we come to a parent who is clearly one who has a perspective on this issue, and I want to ask this and to deal with us, to talk to us about the difficulties that parents have in this new environment. Because I think we can talk about the problems ad infinitum, but the question of parents difficulties, and in fact, a related question is, how integral should be the role of the parent in the dispensation of online teaching? So, parent, can you talk to us? Can you speak with us on the matter?
Good evening. Can anyone hear me? Good evening.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Sophia.
What I would... Someone is speaking?
Yes, Sophia.
Hello?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Okay, what I would say from my perspective, sorry for the video not being shared, but my experience is that the parent it starts at the home. So the parent is the primary role person in terms of being integral in all forms of training. Since we're online, I will say for sure, because my example is this. Now I have my children at home unsupervised, which shouldn't happen, but I don't have an option. And I'm at work. And while I'm at work, I'm still liaising with them to inquire what is going on during the course of the day, especially when they have breaks. So you call to follow up. Sometimes the child may need to send me information for me to send back to their email for them to get the information submitted to the class. So my point is that you have to, on a regular, communicate with your children on a regular, every day. Everybody will not be able to do it at work, but when you get home, you need to be inquiring what is going on and how the child is progressing. As a parent, you also need to be involved with the teachers to find out and follow up what is going on. And then don't only wait for when an incident occurred that you might be displeased with to then jump to run to the school or to approach the teacher. So I will have to say the parent is 150% one of the primary role persons in being involved with the child in the home and liaising with the school as to what is going on. Without that, if you don't give that kind of support, you will lose a lot along the way. And you don't have to be a parent that is technology savvy, because I am not fully technology savvy, but I'm a parent that is interested. So for example, when you see your child's school report and you know it is not the norm, you need to make an inquiry as to what is going on. When the child says to you, everything is going fine, and I'm understanding that some of these children are kind of jitting the system, like for example, saying the work is being submitted when really and truly it is not. So you need to be behind them. When they're sleeping, check the computers. I have a situation, what I did as well is to network with another parent in my son's class, for example, so that when there's a situation going on, I can confirm, not that you're mistrusting your children, but you're confirming that is actually happening. When I had a power outage, when I had an internet problem and my child called and say, well, the internet is lagging, to liaise with another parent to say, please let the teacher know that my child is not delayed, intentionally delaying the class or absent. So these kind of things you have to be involved in every step of the way to make it work. Thank you.
Dr. Welch.
Before we continue, I just want to confirm, I was originally posing the question to Anderson Yearwood. But then I heard another person speak. I wasn't sure who it was that was speaking. That's not from
He was a parent in the audience. So you can go to Anderson Yearwood now.
Oh, well, no, I just want, I want to encourage those persons from who might be intervening, who have a legitimate reason to intervene. That's quite all right. Okay. So at least I'm pretty clear. So, Mr. Yearwood, did you hear the original question?
Yes, I did, and I can speak on it. Must thank the other parent on Safi for her contribution, as in I can relate to a lot of what she has relayed to the panel this evening. For me, one of the main concerns and somewhat challenges has been the balancing act between being there, supervising your children, making sure that they are able to be online and follow the program from teachers, and all parents staff working of duties can take a full-time job in itself. You have technical issues you have to deal with. You have questions, your setup is at home, then you have to look and see if there's a dedicated work area or not. Then sometimes it's not after when the school day is over, then you're able to really focus fully on your professional duties. And then there's still the issue of homework going forward. Then there's also the other situation when you might have a household where both parents are out of the home working, and then the child needs to be supervised. And there's another concept or another area that we have to address and have to consider, and that is the health factor. Currently, we're in a pandemic, and they say that one day, so they may have children going from one home in one bubble into another environment, and depending on all the interactions between their home and the home that they're going to, other people might be out mixing up by the day. Then you may have create a situation where it is conducive to the spread of the virus. So, I mean, that's another fear for parents as well. Another thing that's really concerning to me is the social aspect in relation to children that they're losing. Because I remember growing up as a child, a big part of going to school is interacting with your classmates, playing, and you develop all those social skills and soft skills that are necessary in life to deal with people. And children right now are being robbed of that, I think, with the whole online interaction. And that might have some sort of, I guess, impact going forward in society. But it has really put a lot of strain on parents, because then also you have to look at the situation, maybe financial resources that have to play. You need to have a computer or a tablet for your children. Then you need to have a printer. Then there's the issue of ink, paper, and then you have to look at households where there are multiple children going to school at the same time. So all parents may not be in this position to afford the technology to assist. So that's another aspect I think that needs to be considered. But I mean, it's challenging on everyone involved, and we all have to play our part. And as a parent, I'm adjusting, and I'm sure the children are adjusting. Also, we hear from the students, but I could just look as a parent, and then also for a young child, a minor child, and some of the challenges that they have on a daily basis.
Thank you very much. And let me just also say to Sophia that you did not need to apologize. I was only asking a question earlier. So in fact, I had originally posed a question to Mr. Yearwood, but there was no problem with hearing from you. And we accept that you made some very valuable points. And it's just that as I have a screen before me and I had a list of panelists, I just wanted to get them involved first and then invite others through the organizers to share with us. But that's quite all right. This will manage the various interventions that might come. But thank you again for your comments, Sophia, and also Mr. Yearwood. Just quickly before we come to the students, because we have some students in here, I see Brianna Ford and others, just before we come to them, to give us some of their perspective, their face, and their thoughts on the whole question of online education. Let me come to the teachers, the other teachers. I've come to Mr. Lance Ward. I said my namesake. I'm older, so I'm the mentor. He has to, but at the same time, I'm going to invite him to tell us about some of the issues that are involved, some of the issues, the challenges that he has encountered in this new environment. He might also offer some strategies that he has developed to deal with this environment.
Good evening to all. First, let me also say thank you for the invitation, and I'm happy to be able to share. Now, when Mr. Yearwood, I used to call him Anderson. He's one of my former students. Good to see you, Anderson. When he was talking just now, I said, even as a parent, there are parents who are teachers, and the challenge is great. Now, I'm talking now from the perspective of a teacher. Now, Mr. Yearwood said he would, love to be able to, let's say, help his child while he is doing his work. Now, here I have a situation where I am in the classroom, I'm teaching, and the student is having challenges. Now, his parent is the teacher who is actually in the classroom teaching, very, very close to him, and sometimes is unable to assist him in the challenges. And then I know the teacher, I am seeing the frustration that he is having because he wants to be a part of the classroom experience, but clearly he can't be because he's having issues. So as a teacher now, I have to try to help him to understand that these things will happen from time to time. The internet will drop out, the device will malfunction, you know, so understand that that is what we are working with. So do your best. So some of the challenges as a teacher is, again, trying to help the students to face the realities of online teaching, especially where the problems with the device, you know, not working or the internet dropping out. Another challenge is the cooperation of the parents. I think this is vital. If we have the cooperation of parents with us, I believe things would work a little better. Now, by that, I'm going to use my school and my direct class as an example. All right, now I am of the opinion that if my children are as close to the, let's say, the physical classroom, and I'm talking now in terms of the physical appearance, that it would help. That's my thinking. So I asked my parents to have them clad in the school uniform during class. Now, at first, you know, they were having difficulties, but I must say the cooperation was beautiful. They agreed, and the children come to school. The children come to school daily in uniform. Now, we have certain protocols. The student must be seen. So the camera must be turned on. The mic must be muted. There must be no chatting during online class. I say to them, that's like talking in the classroom when I'm standing in front of you, and that is something that you don't do. So there are certain protocols that must be followed. Now, I am at home. I am not in their presence. So in order for things again to flow smoothly, the cooperation of parents is essential. Many times I am unable to see a student. I call the name of the student. I can't see, can't hear. And another good aspect of working with the technology is that we have class chats. So I am sometimes quickly able to pull up a parent in the chat and ask, what's the problem? I'm not seeing the child. Now, the parent is able to, if home, to check or to make a call to find out, and quickly I see the camera back on. Now, some of the other challenges are, while teaching is going on, sometimes children are easily distracted. Sometimes they distract themselves. Sometimes instead of paying attention, they're playing games. So again, the cooperation of the parents is essential, where from time to time, you know, I may call a parent, and having called the parent checks, and believe it or not, they find the child with the camera off and doing something completely contrary to what is happening in the class. Now, in the regular classroom, you're able to administer some form of discipline, punishment if you want. And I am having the cooperation with my parents, where since I am not able to do it, they are doing it for me. So I'm saying, if we work together, if we cooperate with one another, we can overcome, you know, some of these challenges. Now, another challenge is, I am asking a question to my student. Let's say the question is, how do you find the perimeter? What's the perimeter? And the student is looking at me when I ask the question, but before the student answers, this is what happens. And then you hear the student repeat the distance around any closed figure. So clearly, the student didn't answer from his memory. The student was given the answer. You don't hear anything, but I'm saying you can see that the student is looking to get the answer, and then the student comes back and gives the answer. In terms of the work submitted, the authenticity sometimes is questionable. Now, these are students that we would have had in the regular classroom, students that we are accustomed to, students that we know. And then all of a sudden with online teaching, we are realizing that grades are just being elevated. So again, cooperation from the parents. The parents need to have an eye to ensure, that the work is being done by the student. I mean, there are many other challenges, but I just given a few. Maybe some of the other teachers would be able to share their experience.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. About the elevation of grades when it comes to students studying online, and which might tell its own story, and the story might two-sided story. That is, the question of how teachers are assessing might well be an issue, and quite apart from the possibility of cheating or possibility of other kinds of collaboration taking place behind the scenes. I'm not going to pose this other one as a question before I go to Ms. Mary Springer Carrington, but as you were speaking about parents and students and the student looking away from the camera to get a validation from a parent, I was thinking about the social divide that exists in our nation. It's not an issue that I'm going to fully cover here, but the whole question of pretty, because we might argue that in this current environment, that the tablet and the cell phone, gypsy, and I use the word gypsy in a Barbadian context, the gypsy mode that can see into your house, they can see into your background. And I'm aware of other situations where I have been online in a church setting, and all of a sudden somebody who has a camera on, I see the person emerging from a room shirtless or almost in full view of the camera, the person in a situation which really invaded greater privacy. So there are issues that we face when it comes to some households.
I don't agree with cameras being on. If you're answering a question, turn on your camera. I do not think
enough physical space, and there's not enough physical space in the household to sort of segregate the teaching and learning activity from the other activities taking place in the home. But let me move to Sister Dolores Springer Carrington. And you are ideally placed also as a teacher to identify some of the issues and also some of the strategies that you use to counter these issues. I've heard from Mr. Ward. So what is your take? Talk to us about your experience.
Just as Mr. Ward pointed out, right? With the I have established within my classroom the same classrooms on virtual and the virtual classroom. I have put certain things in place where children I send them a reminder every morning. I send an inspirational thought to them. I remind them what they need to have at their tables, their water, all the books for the day should be there. So I just remind them, well, this is, for example, tomorrow I will write, this is Monday, bring your timetable, the books to the timetable. So they have everything to their hand. I expect that when they're into the classroom, that their mics are muted, but their cameras are on. I give them chance to chat, and I'm there because I open my classroom about 8:30. And I allow them to chat, and I'm observing their chatter, because I also tell them that there's certain things that they don't talk about in the classroom at that time. You exchange greetings, and I set the tone for my class. In that, having on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at my school, we have teachers' devotion online at 8 o'clock. When I leave that devotion, I go straight to my class for devotion with them to prepare. So I set the tone for my class. My students are well aware that they do the devotion. They may play the keyboard, they may sing, they do the prayer, and things like that. So when I give them an inspirational thought, they also share with me an inspirational thought for the day.
Now, when it comes to the fact that, and I would say this happens right across the board at my school, right? And we are connected in that if one teacher is experiencing a problem, that is conveyed in the chat, and somebody gets on top of it and work with that teacher. Also, I might say that my students, a lot of my students are at the age, and let me say I teach a class 3, they are pretty savvy and they know things to do when a student encounters the difficulty of like being knocked off or bumped off and they miss something. I always say to them, if you miss something, don't come back on and tell me you missed, because I noticed that you have disappeared. And a student is quick to put whatever, if we were correcting work, to put it in the chat for them, in the stream. Also, the answers are recorded there for them. So they don't come back on and say, well, I missed. They just say out of courtesy, teacher, you recognize that I said, yes, I did. I said, and we're making provisions. Also, I allow my session for them to come to me after break if they might have missed instruction. My classroom is open. They can come back in and we can discuss, but I always tell them one-on-one. Added to it, you would hear some children say to me, ma'am, can I speak with you privately? I said, sure. So when they say things to me like that, as we dismiss for break, they know that they have my hearing, my attention. I recognize that for me and my students, I recognize that they have to be respectful to me and I have to respect them. I'm coming into their homes and I know the problems that can exist. But I also say to them, if you, for one reason or not, can't turn on your camera, just let me know. And they would say to me, ma'am, I am having my breakfast. Is it okay? I said, yes. I'm having my lunch. Is it okay? And as soon as that is finished, they will turn on their cameras. Do they experience the bumping off and the on? Yes, of course they do. Fortunately for me, as I joke with another colleague and say, maybe it is the areas in which they live that they experience a high volume of persons using the internet, but I don't disappear, but they do. And I understand that, you see, and I make provisions for my students.
Dolores, Pedro.
Hello?
Right, it's Edward speaking. I think based on your statements coming out of this year, one could see some level of framework, including all of the teachers themselves, where teachers like you yourself come together, like what I said in the chat. I find in the private schools, I want to say they have it down to the T, but what you have highlighted, which people could teach is a private school, is that loss of communication, how we can come together as one group and say, look, before a teacher experience these issues, they will have this basic training, how to, like for instance, a lot of teachers have gone on, and I'm subject to correction, but I've seen it happening, so it tells me it doesn't happen often. A teacher come on to teach the class, have they already introduced themselves, what is expected of the children, what is expected of the parents, have there been communication channels that are set up? These are things that I hope that out of this this panel discussion that we could present. Again, I'm sorry that the acting officer is not here, that we could present to her and say, look, there needs to be some firm, because we may be, who knows, we may be back here by the end of the year or next year, because everybody's hoping stuff to open up. So once it open up, you know, we don't need this technology anymore. But the fact is, coming out of the first lockdown, I don't think much has been learned where you can use the issues that that occurred in the first lockdown to help going forward in the second lockdown. Although things are a little bit more easy, teachers are accustomed teaching online, really getting the information and so forth, there is still everybody having their own way in doing stuff. And y'all can correct me, there's why teachers go to Erdison, so that there is a standardized form of teaching as much as possible in today's current environment. I think that needs to be done here also in the online platform, because everybody has their own way. And then you have these mixed results, you have these issues. And as someone said on the group, what about the students that haven't been online? When they go back to school, what's going to happen? And I think in the school environment, no one should be left behind. That's my feeling. That's my thinking.
And
Thank you.
I agree with you 100%. I found that this being my second term in online teaching, the first I would say was, caught us off guard. But when we resumed school in September, we had made plans that we are going to have face-to-face once we were permitted. And we gradually brought our schools back in the first week. By the first week, and they were staggered. All they come in the same day, but by the end of that first week, every student was back in school. And I am so thankful that we were able to do that entire term of face-to-face teaching. So it kind of, this time around is almost what have we learned? We learned from that. And as I keep telling my students, they pray for me. And I am so thankful. They do offer the prayer, and they also, I tell them, this is going to, don't see it as a curse, but see it as a blessing. And when we come to the point that we recognize that we can never say that we're going to get out of this. And I don't believe online teaching will this is for another step. And we as educators have to prepare ourselves for the next step forward.
I wish to, if I may,
Thank
Chair.
you very much.
I wish to,
yes.
if I come in here, that you need to set some teaching standards for this online business. Well, similarly, this isn't have just in schools. At my office, we hold all of our meetings online, board meeting, management meeting, team meeting, all meetings are online. And what's the purpose of a meeting? Sometimes in a meeting, it's just not the voice, it's the nonverbal communication cues you're looking at. You want to see people's face to see the expression. We do that in the classroom. Sometimes we look at children and we say, well, look, and you punch on that child and ask a question. So why turn off the camera is because the camera gives you the visual part of it that is useful to a teacher. So we have to set some standards. Children must know that if they don't turn on the camera, something will happen, right? So all of these things, I think that school standards for teaching schools can put in place in this new environment. Just like we had to put them in place. I told my staff, you must turn on your camera when we have a meeting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eastman, and some very useful comments on the issue, the challenges that are facing this and this new learning environment. I must say instead of those of us who managed to sign on, there's a very interesting chat going on parallel to this meeting here. Yes. And I've been looking at some of the comments on the chat. I know we raised a question earlier on about whether teachers who are not good at what they do in the face-to-face mode, and what if one can expect those teachers to be competent when they move to an online mode. And we're not saying it's impossible, but it suggests that just to be solved, along with improving teacher methodologies. What we also need to do is to look and to assess or evaluate our teachers in terms of weaknesses and strengths, etc., and to see if we can put horses for courses. It may be that some teachers who are teaching particular subject in a particular whatever need to be moved to another area to permit those teachers who are a little more competent to deliver, while we get on with the business of training those to make them a little more competent. But we have some young people here, and I didn't really have a little more than half an hour to go. I would hate to think that we went through this and we didn't have an opportunity to hear from our students. Now I'm going to give them a more open rein, meaning that they have been involved in this thing. I want to hear from them. For them to tell me, tell us what might be for you. So I'm going to the students here. I'm going to, because I have to, yes, I have Dimitri Hodge, but since I'm still very old-fashioned, Dimitri, and still very much a creature of a past age, it means that I'm going to ask the ladies first, or one lady first before I come back to you. Please forgive me for being old-fashioned, but that's how I am. Is Abriana here? Yes, I see Abriana. And I also see Janisha. Is it Janisha? How do you pronounce your name? Just you tell me first before you do anything else. Janisha.
Janasha.
Janasha. Okay, good. Well, Lord, thank you. I'm glad for that. Janasha. I try to remember that. So let's go to Abriana. Talk to me about your experiences in the online environment, some of the issues that you face, and perhaps if you have any suggestions, give us those. Abriana.
Hi, good afternoon to everybody. Well, my experiences with online school, it has not been terrible at all. I can say that there are disadvantages and advantages. I like the fact that I'm flexible. I can be able to, be in my own workspace at home and revise when I want to. I don't have to catch the bus on mornings, get up that early and, go to school and all that. The time that you would have to waste to, when you could be studying, especially I have CXCs, so that is my main focus right now, studying on my CXCs. So for me, online school, I have to say that it can take a toll on you, but as a person who is determined and a person who wants better or wants more, I would say that it takes a lot of discipline and it takes a lot out of a person to to do well and not cheat or to be absent, things that would cause a person to be complacent. So my suggestions or my views on this entire online learning and my experience moreover has been actually not that bad because, as I said before, I'm a determined person. So I put my mind to the fact that, all right, I know that on tomorrow morning or the next day, I will be seeing the same screen, the same laptop, the same tablet or whatever. But the whole point of it is that I want my wants. I want to get the best results. So that's just my focus at the point in time. So thank you.
Well, you're very articulate and certainly you are a disciplined student. So that's good. I really would wonder what would happen if you were otherwise. But nevertheless, I'm happy that you found your way through the system.
Thank you.
Janasha?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Personally, to me, the online experience hasn't been that bad. Similarly to Abriana, I'm very determined, but at times I don't have that much motivation to do the work. I'm not sure where it comes from or why it's happening, but sometimes I just have like bad headaches from staring at the screen for an extended period of time. And late at night, I get really bad headaches for the same reason. Personally, again, the teachers at my school are very understanding, and if we have any problems, we can easily go to them and they would know how to deal with it. They would give us any extended deadlines if we need them. But at the same time, sometimes it can be a lot of stress when some of them run down us with work. Not all, but it's a very minor few that actually do it. Let me say an advantage. Same as Abriana, I like my freedom. I can do what I want when I want. I can go back and look at notes if I need them any time of the day. Disadvantages though, I found myself very dependent upon those said notes. If I have an assignment to do, not necessarily a test, but an assignment, I would not be exactly thinking fully. I know that's not good, but I can't help myself at times if I'm a little bit stuck to just go and look at a few notes so I can get back on track with what I'm doing. Also, the teachers, again, as I said, are understanding. and their methods are very good. Some, in some classes, I'm able to understand everything that's going on. The teachers know what they're doing. They're very articulate with their words. They explain things very well. And I'm able to get my notes. And if we ever need extra time to write down notes, they will give us the extra time. That's basically it for now. Yeah.
Well, again, we have from a student a very positive outlook on the question, but I'm a little bothered. I'm a little bothered about the headaches, and I'm about them mainly because one of the things that we have not spoken about here, because I suspect we lack the what we may call the medical information or whatever other discipline other than medicine might deal with these things to this particular point. But I know that some of the technical persons here might really have some other answers that can give. But the fact that you've experienced headaches and you might be relating that to the screen, what's happening, because I am aware in my own context, computer screen for me. And I know that sometimes the flickering of the screen, I know that has a capacity sometimes because of the frequency at which it is flickering to create migraine problems that lead to migraine headaches and other forms of problems. And I suspect that that in the instructions that are given to students in the classroom, they ought to be, which have to do with how much time you spend online, and there must be opportunities for breaks where you step away from the screen and do something else. Maybe adjust your eye in a long distance sight, then come back again. But all you're both very positive. So let's go to Dimitri, and I think I have another person, Robin Williams. If Robin Williams is with us after Dimitri, I'm going to ask you to also comment on your experience and perhaps to identify any issues you face and probably offer some, if you can go right ahead.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to be here. Personally, my experience with online school, it has been a bit challenging, but I've been able to adapt because I'm a person that is able to adapt to different situations. So adapting to this hasn't been too difficult. But my main struggle with online school is the fact that I, as a student, I'm very social. So I enjoy the atmosphere, having the students around me, having the teacher explaining everything in front of me, the physical interaction. That's how I learn best. So now having that taken away with the online format, because, for example, there might be a time where a teacher asks a question and there's silence for a period of time. That's not how I learn the best. So that can be a bit hindering for me. In terms of the issues, I actually got feedback from some of my peers to get their general interpretation of online school. Some of them said that they do like it because some of them may be introverted and they might not like the physical interaction of physical school. So the online format works better for them. Some of them said that they have certain setups at home that allow them to just be good in this format. But from the majority of these reviews that I got, they favorably don't like it. Some people say that there's a lack of motivation because of staring at a screen all the time and not being able to feed off of each other's energy. Some people say that they get fatigue or eye strain after staring at the computer screen for so long. There's the aspect of truly grasping a topic, because in the physical format, the teacher would be there and we could interrupt him or her at any given point if we don't understand something. But with the online format, they might be going along so quickly that we might not get that chance to do that. So that is also taken away. As it was mentioned earlier, the distractions, for example, television, the phone, whatever the case might be, there may be times where a student finds themselves wandering off and going into something completely different and not focusing on the class. But I think that one of the biggest challenges might have been the fact that school and home, those two environments are very different. At school, children would be very ready to learn. They'd be ready to get into work. They'd be ready to do everything academic when they're there. And then when they're at home, that's their time to relax. That's their time to unwind and just let everything out. So now that aspect is also taken away because now they have to put all of that into their home environment. So some people might be struggling to adapt to that. But yeah, I think that the online format, it's been okay, but there are some little issues that would need to be fixed.
Thank you very much for your comments. If I may just step back a bit, you yourself face the whole question of interaction with the teacher is an important your learning style, and I think most of us can identify with that. There are some students who will certainly can work better independently of that kind of interaction with the teacher, but not all students can do that, and therefore it can't be a situation where the notion is that one size fits all, because that may be one of the issues that we have to face. The question, I know that the issue of standardization was raised earlier, and I have no difficulty or quarrel with that, but we may have to note that sometimes has the effect. I remember my own experience as a youngster at school when I first went into the first form at my school, and that's many years ago. And the teacher began to teach maths. I come from an environment where they were teaching arithmetic, because when I went in primary school, there was no geometry or algebra. You learn arithmetic. So here was I had come into the classroom, and the teacher begins to put some puzzles on board, A and B and C and all that, and I could not understand a thing. I could what that teacher was saying on what I knew from arithmetic. So it took me an extremely long time to in fact I failed the maths through the first and second form, in the third form, etc. I failed terribly because nobody took the time to understand that not everybody learns the same way, and not everybody has the same capacity. You know, it took me years before I bought a book from Canada called the Sean series book, Elementary Algebra. I went through that, and all of a sudden discovered all the rules that I should have known, that a teacher should have given to me, that would enable me to be able to make that transition from arithmetic to the wider mathematics syllabus. So right, we need to understand that not all one size fits all, and our teachers need to recognize that students do have different needs, and the system needs to recognize that. Is Robin Williams with us?
Yes,
is Robin Williams with us?
Yes, sir.
Yes, welcome. Welcome. I know see you far corner of my screen. I'm very happy you're here. Can you tell us some of your experiences now? Welcome again.
My experience of online school has been a 50-50% kind of thing. 50% is that I would normally hate to go to school, have to wake up so early in the morning to get to school on time, and I have to stay in the classroom outside. It's hot, and the fans don't, and where I was sitting in class, the fans don't really hit me that much. So I used to hate going to school. Now I don't mind going to school because I can sit down in a comfortable chair and go to school. Also, the other percent is my sister, mother, and father are all using the internet and it's sticking, and sometimes I drop in and out of class. And since I wear glasses because I have stigmatism, so the constant looking at a particular person or thing on the screen strains my eyes, and I get these headaches. Like I said before, it's not all bad because it's not all bad before I said, because I still get, instead of interacting with my friends like physically, I still get to interact with them using the virtual platform. There's some students and they were able to plan our online Asia-wide program using different platforms instead of having to go to physical school to plan out the entire thing. Also, some devices like mine were not bought to go to online school, so my father would have to adjust some settings and download different items to make sure that I can go to school and get a good education, but it doesn't always work the way it's supposed to. But overall, school's been Sir Rod also made the class really interactive like how he normally does, so it still feels like I'm at physical school, just not at physical school. Thank you.
Oh my! I saw her looking almost as though she could see him. So Ward looking up there, so Ward to get validation, etc. It's very interesting.
She did good.
We have, yes, very well. She did a very good job. I mean, as a primary school child, I thought that her ability to speak online in the way she did is a good testimony to the preparation that has taken place in the school, etc. I have been informed that we've been given some extension of time, which means that we can proceed with some other things. But I need to pose a general question now, and I'm going to invite person now, because we have extended time. It still means that our panelists need to watch the whole question of monopoly of time, that you have a limited time to offer a few suggestions, a few comments, etc. Before a bit more, and possibly if we can invite the organizers to field any questions to us that have come up in the chat, so that we can have an opportunity perhaps to address some of those. I raised the question earlier of the question of the social class divisions within our society, and the opportunity that students will have differentially. And while I was looking at it, with a point that was made, we said that the cheaper devices may have lower quality screens, lower quality resolution, the cheaper devices. And that obviously the person who has greater resources, an instrument, a laptop or phone, whatever it is, with a greater capacity, that suggests that that issue, that social issue, is again taken into consideration. Also, another issue that came up, mentioned by one or two of the panelists, has to do with the question of the choices that we may have. I have a computer. I have two computers, in fact. I have my phone I have 3 computers. My wife also has a computer, phone, etc., so that she does not need to use what I have. But there are many homes where that single computer is demand for those resources by everybody, the students, the household, as well as the parent. The parent may be in competition with their child for the use of the same laptop, etc. And that may be a social issue. Now I know that the ministry has done a lot to help people in acquiring necessary equipment, but the big but again is this is we provide to our students. Now I'm going to throw this out to us, and I want to ask our panelists as they contemplate what I just said, and also as they think about the issues, the challenges of online education. I want my panelists, one by one, often in very short, very brief comments, tell me how do you see us going forward? Because we all know that more want to get back into face-to-face teaching as soon as possible. There's a suggestion be able to go back to the way we had done before. So there are obviously some changes taking place. But what is the way forward? How do you see the way forward? That's a general throwing out. I see Sonia is Sonia Hill is getting ready to start with you, Sonia.
Thank you. Going forward, there are going to be a number of changes. I see 2021 as a revolutionary year in education, because I don't think we're ever going to go back to simply face-to-face. Just as you began when you challenged that we would have started EduTech a little while ago, I'm saying that this is going to be the new educational platform for many of our schools, if not all of our schools, from primary right through. So therefore, you're going to have an integration of the 2 modems in terms of teaching and learning. And having gotten to the stage that we're at now and recognizing the powerfulness of online and distance learning, I do not see our teachers just going back to face-to-face learning alone. We're going to have both. And I do agree with the importance of having collaboration in terms of our parents. And that is very vital to the whole process in terms of our going forward. We need to have that continual support from our parents. That's my take.
Okay. Much for those comments. Incidentally, when you this evening, you mentioned the whole notion of asynchronous and synchronous education. Can you, in a few brief sentences, notice the emphasis, a few brief sentences, define for the listening and watching audience I understand what you mean, but I want you to tell us, what do you mean by that? In a few brief sentences, tell us.
Synchronous teaching and learning means you're learning from a distance, where you have your virtual classroom and you're attending sessions weekly with your teachers. So it comes similar to what you do on a daily basis in terms of face-to-face. Asynchronous, however, is where the students are allowed to assess materials and they can ask questions, but they do not have to do it at the same time. You have time to deliberate and so on. So there's no meeting of the 2 groups, simply put, for parents to understand the difference.
Thank you very much. In that context, therefore, I'm trying out the question to someone else again now. And that context, then, when we're thinking of online, we might be limiting ourselves to the wide possibilities in other forms that might exist. For example, I'm just beginning to wonder if we shouldn't have more by way of the issue wouldn't be live, of course, more by way of instructional programs. In fact, I'm thinking that perhaps it may be really a good thing to have a separate channel or two. It is not beyond the capacity or capability of our planners to have arrangement where programs are put on the television. I listen very often to his name slips me, as a mass programs on the radio and on the television. Jeff
Brooms.
Yeah,
Radio school.
Brooms. And I listen to him, and he does an excellent job in getting across his material. And I also watched on television recently someone who's in the technical field teaching geography, using modern technology, how you can master certain topics, certain subjects. So perhaps we need to pay a lot of attention to this. I want to turn to I don't want to use the word technician. I'm just trying to get his name again. Mr. Edward Millington, and thoughts on the way forward. Mr. Millington.
Hi. I just want to reflect, I don't know if I have the time, to what some of the students were actually saying, and this is one of the reasons why I had offered to come on today. Millington. Right. So in using computer systems, I have noticed, even my daughter, her classes, my stepdaughter and so forth, sometimes people are using the computer systems where the background is a window. That's a no-no. That causes a lot of reflection onto the computer monitor and actually causes eye strain. Okay, if a person is using a monitor, the old CTR, I call it TV type of monitors, those are the ones you tend to have that flickering, you have that blurriness. Even the very cheaper devices like the tablets and so forth, you don't have that level of quality. And as you suggested, every, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, depending on how a student is feeling, even teachers, look away, stretch your eyes somewhere far, could be somewhere in the dark, somewhere in the light, get up, stretch, walk around. These are things that one have to do while being on extended online classes, even to get up to stretch. Those are things that you normally do. Now, in terms of things going forward, I really see that there's going to be a combination of both online. My fear is that people are going to be wanting to go back to the norm so much that the online platform will not be developed. That is my real fear. I'm thinking on the fact is that you don't want students to be at home and say, well, I could log on to online class because it's streaming. They prefer to stay home. But what I'm looking at is children now being able to use technology in the class a little bit more effectively in training. So let's say before, a teacher might not be able to get over something, they may be able to play a YouTube something. I also like the fact that if you should be able to record the sessions. So let's say Mr. Ward, Sonia, etc., Dolores, had a pretty good class, because it's good or not. It's recorded. A child now has the advantage now to go home and replay something that they did not understand, right? I also like the idea, and unfortunately, it's taken away from teachers' time because teachers have a life. And I think many of us as parents forget about that. Sometimes I see emails, classwork happening late in the night, early in the morning. Teachers don't have a life, because I know they have children, and I think that teachers are really frontline workers and need to be respected on that matter. But I think that the recording sessions, that online class present, even if it doesn't happen online anymore, it is recorded, that our children can go into our archive and pull it and say, well, I didn't remember something 2-3 days ago. I get it pulled up by my old teachers and go through that day and learn. That's where I want to see it goes. I want to see that level of collaboration, as Henderson mentioned, a framework. There needs to be a new framework on online teaching within Barbados. And understanding our Prime Minister, I think if that means that we develop it for the Caribbean, I think we have the best minds, we should be able to do that. That is my vision for the online class or the online teaching going forward.
Thank you very much. You raised a number of issues there, which are particularly important, and I do hope that those who are watching on would have taken note of what you've made. The whole question of when we go forward in the future and what we do in terms of combining technology, of using technology in the classroom. Those are particularly important. Mr. Eastman, you come from what they call a background of experience. And you will have perspectives which are tied, not necessarily to rigidly, but they're tied to that experience. So I want to hear from you concerning your expectations of the way forward, because we didn't know what some of the problems are. Now the question is, where do we go from here? And incidentally, in the classroom anymore, thank God, I have a lot of sympathy for those of you who are teachers still in the classroom. But Lord knows. But anyhow, don't let me go. I was going to go down another road, but I come back to the topic in question. Let's hear from you.
I want to pick up from where Mr. Millington left off. In that, here we are concentrating on ICT in education and the use of ICT in education. And when I say education and training. But I think that the investment in training, retraining teachers to use the information communication technology in teaching and the training is part of a wider new investment that we must make in education and training. In the 50s and 60s, it was trying to get everybody in school, universal secondary education and access to university education. I think that what COVID has taught us now, that we need to move to a different level. What COVID has taught this country now is that we had an economy, and Mr. Milton says he fears that once things goes back to normal, we will dash away the technology and go back to our old methods. We can't afford to do that. Similarly, we in Barbados, we are dependent on tourism. Now tourism is practically dead. And we fear that once COVID is gone, we might go back to our dependency on tourism. I think we have to come out of COVID with a new economy. And therefore, we have to look at manufacturing, agriculture, and those other things to bring in some foreign exchange in the country rather than just wait on tourism, because we can see what it can do for us. In order to do that, we have to take a wider view of technology, and that will impact on what we teach in school. Not only how we do it, but what we teach. I mean, right here in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, they do the level 2 CVQs in schools. While we still do the level 2 CVQs at the Polytechnic, not the Polytechnic, the Institute of Technology and the Barbados Vocational Training Board, etc. We have to move our system technologically higher so that our people will take part in these other sectors that will help give us a more balanced approach to the economy. And it has to start in the schools, and it has to start with a reinvestment in the type of teachers we have, the type of curriculum we have in the schools, and even the type of curriculum we have in our tertiary education providers, including the universities. I mean, we see it where we sit from the TVET Council, we take part in the World Skills. And when we go there, we are competing with people who are degree level in their technical areas. And they come out of school and out of the colleges, the technical colleges, at a much higher level technically than our people. So we have that gap to fill. So it is a wider investment in technology that we're looking at, including the technology to be used in teaching and learning. I stop there.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm going to switch to the parent again. And the Mr. Yearwood, when
Yes,
Mr. Ward said that, when Mr. Ward said he taught you at school,
Mm-hmm.
and I looked at the two of you on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was amazed. It's either that, and I don't want to suggest that you're looking old, but I couldn't believe that Mr. Ward taught you. I was
Started teaching at a
around.
very young age, I would assume, you know.
Wonderful, wonderful. Nevertheless, as a parent, you're a parent, you're also a professional. But as a parent, the question is again, and this is just for us, a sense of where do you see us going, where do you see the future taking us, especially when it comes to this online education and the question of the parent and the parent's role in that process. Where do you see us going?
Well, I don't see online education being a thing in the past, even once the pandemic has come to an end, as it's a way that really can create a sense of all inclusiveness, but enable for everyone to really partake in the whole educational process. The training does not only need to be focused on the teachers, the parents as well have to be trained, or some have some orientation in relation to the programs being used and devices. Because not all parents are computer literate or might not understand what's going on. So as programs are developed going forward, parents need to be involved along with the teachers and the students to make sure that the programs are structured in a way that everyone can be included and can benefit fully from the programs going forward. Also, I believe there needs to be a more blended approach, more downtime off the screen. You can't, because like my daughter, she goes to school from 9 to 2:30. I mean, there's lunch and other breaks, but I think that's too long of a time for children, you know, to keep them engaged. It's the engagement of the students at the end of the day. And you have to look at more innovative ways of delivering how you're teaching. It can't be the same, just basic maths, sums on the screen, word problems, things like that. You need to find other ways to keep them engaged and make it more fun for them to use their devices that way, that they can enjoy and get more out of the whole learning experience. Also, with the downtime and blended, it will give parents a little break as well too, to be able to handle their other responsibilities to ensure that the children can go to school, so that they can earn a living as well, so that they can pay for the internet and the devices that they would need to partake in the whole process going forward. So in my view, to really have a truly beneficial educational system, there needs to be discussion at all levels from all the parties. It can't just be the ministry determining this is what I see as the way forward. It needs to be collaborative between the parents, the teachers, and the students to ensure that it's all inclusive, to move forward, to embrace technology, but also give the students some opportunity to interact with their peers and have a little, and be children and have fun. The use of technology must be fun as well for the children, so that they can see it as a tool to learn, but also that they will be engaged and really benefit fully from the whole process. And that's how I see it going forward.
Thank you very much again. There was a question which I'm not posing to the panelists, but just throwing it out there widely for your contemplation. And it says, and the question is, what is the ministries who are not coming online to teach? Now, I'm going to stop you for a moment to offer an apology for the acting chief education officer. I know we mentioned that she wasn't here, but she did contact us to let us know that there was something had happened which prohibited her from being able to come this evening. I'm sure that at some other point in time she might be able to join with but nevertheless, the question, what is the ministry doing about those people coming online to teach? Now, I was not aware and perhaps somebody might be aware as to whether teachers had an option within the current system to opt out of using the technology. If the situation, if they were allowed to opt out, the person who posed the question goes on to say, some class teachers are sacrificing along with their scheduled subjects so that the students would not be disadvantaged. And I'm assuming in some cases, if teachers are permitted to opt out for whatever reason, that somebody else has to fill the slack. Somebody else has to become involved in trying to make up for that differential. And I was wondering, when allowed, whether that is so. Are teachers allowed to opt out? Maybe somebody here can answer the question very quickly, just in a very short sentence or two. Are teachers allowed to opt out? Maybe one of the teachers there can tell me. Is it optional? Any Dolores, Lance Ward, Sonia St. Hill, are teachers allowed to opt out?
Well, if I can speak from...
No. Okay.
Go ahead, Dolores.
Yeah, I am not aware if teachers were given that. And I do believe teachers regard their work in a professional way. And I think they were interested in seeing that the students be not disadvantaged, but I am not aware of that. The other thing, the point that I want to make, the Ministry of Education, and I was privileged to have done one of the first schools who did the EduTech program, and that. Where have we gone since then? We have not done anything more with those teachers who were trained. When you look at it, can we go back? We cannot. And I haven't taught in the United States. There are things that I saw there that I would hold on to, and some I will let go. Teachers have to be treated in a way that when they engage, you provide professional development for teachers, and you reimburse them for that. You acknowledge that they're trained, not only just Earlston trained, but provide some means where teachers get some kind of thing for having gone through a training. And that is where we need to see our going forward with not going back to what we have left, but pressing onward. When you really look at it, right? During the first term, we allow our students to bring their laptops, their tablets to school, so that we were kind of using it within the classroom. So you have to look and see how are we going to progress forward? Are teachers and parents allowed to contribute things? Are only a certain set of people allowed to make contributions?
If I can come in here, I am speaking of my school days. I'm the Adventist school. You know, my director and my principal, you know, keep reminding us that it is not business as usual. So in other words, you have to go with the flow. And if the flow is online, then it has to be online. And the question that was asked previously as to going forward, I right now I am scared, because what I am seeing at our school, even in terms of online, it is as though we are still face to face in a sense. And what do I mean? Our school program continues. We still have special weeks. We had African Awareness Week, and you know, we had in our worship session, whole school, at the beginning of each day of the week, you know, different aspects of the culture. And then the Friday to culminate it, you know, we had a presentation, and you know, you saw the collaboration of parents and teachers working together. Parents had to take videos, and then this video had to be put together. I said to my principal, we need to share it with the education and with, you know, the other public schools to see that learning can continue, you know, in the virtual classroom. I had to step out sometime, and when I got back, my class was having PE with the PE teacher, and you know, it was amazing because I said, when they actually came back to me after PE, those children were clad in their PE uniform and they were sweating, you know, as though, you know, it was like from a normal setting. He actually took them through, you know, various exercises and things like that. I had an online party, and the student said, "Sir, it was my best birthday party ever." You know, according to what Robin said, they got together and they planned a JY program. So these things still continue. Things that we did in the physical classroom, we are still able to do on the virtual platform. Now, when we went back to school during the first term, we had full online school, as you know, Delori said, and we were able to continue to use the technology. Children still had assignments where they had to use the technology. I remember sometimes there were students absent and parents contacted to find out if they are going to be allowed. I said, yes, I'm going to pull them into the classroom. So even though they were at home, they were still at school, you know, and teaching what was happening. The blended approach was being used. We continue with our, you know, schools program. And I'm saying the way forward is that even when we get back into the physical space, we will continue to use the technology. Children are able to manipulate. They're coming up with in their projects creativity that I wasn't even seeing in the physical classroom. And I'm saying back into the physical classroom, these things will be integrated to allow the boys and girls to continue, you know, to grow and to develop even technologically.
Based on what we're hearing.
Dr. Welch,
Yes.
could we just get some people from the audience to pose some questions in 2 minutes?
Yes. Go right ahead. If there's anyone in the audience, but I would require the administrators of this Zoom program to field those questions and or have them fed in to us.
There's a Wilma McLean and an Austin Straker, two principals in your audience. I wonder if they want to comment on the some of the things you're saying. There are two principals on Good Shepherd and Eden Lodge.
Okay. Invite them, of course, I meant singly, to offer the comments to us. And let me just here, because again, our time is, we have another 18 or 19 minutes here.
Yeah.
Let me just guide them in the sense that I'm asking first to give us a summary comment, which means that the comments have to be measured in terms of use, on the challenges that face the system, and secondly, the way forward, because that's a question that was applying to all the others. So let's go first, and then and any other issue that they might consider to be important, if they can deliver that to us in a very, be ready. Or any question that they want to ask us.
But I don't see the job. But then there, I just want to pose a question: how important it is for a teacher when teaching to have his or her camera on, that students can see his or her face on the screen during the actual teaching.
If we can answer.
So have shown that in a number of schools, there are teachers who come on, go into a class, and teach a full class without their camera being on.
Dr. Lewis, I enter my class. I do not turn off my camera when I'm instructing students. I do not, because I want to see them and I want them to see me. And I have told them, and that is one of the ground rules that I have set down. I said, it's very rude for you to come into the classroom and I can't see you. I ask them, I say to them, and they don't try that with me. I say, if I were to turn off my camera, would you know what I'm doing and where I am? I could set you to work and go and be in my bed. Would you know where I am? No. So I expect my students, and I respect them, and I respect the fact that they are paying students. So I would want to give them the best. So when I come into the classroom, when I enter before that. And I have my camera off. And as soon as the first person enters the classroom, I respond to them. Good morning. I type a message and I let them see it. If I'm doing something like eating, then.
I can say in a private school, Ms. Karen, but what with some government school teachers and some secondary school and primary school go to class and their camera is off?
Well, it is clear that that in this case we've just been given an answer from a teacher who understood on the situation, the requirement for both parties to have their cameras on, and so therefore she really answering your question, saying it's important. Now, if it may happen at a public school, otherwise I think she's offering the best practice. In most case, we don't really need to belabor the point. The important thing is that she is really saying it's important, vitally important for both parties to have their cameras on for the proper teaching learning transaction to take place.
Just
I think did you have? Yes, thank you. There's supposed to be another from outside of our panelists. Is there another person who's asked, who want to raise an issue with us? If not,
Professor,
I'm coming up. Yes.
I would just like to add to what Ms. Springer said, in the sense that before we started, we met with our parents and we gave them the ground rules. We gave them the protocols. We told them what was expected in terms of muting the mics, in terms of cameras being on. So I think that when you have that cooperation, it is easier going forward, because you see, if the cameras go off, like I said, I can just drop something in the chat as a reminder, and then quickly so the camera is turned back on.
Could I say something, please?
Sure.
Yeah, it's a concern, really. This is Julian, one of the hosts.
Yes, thank you.
It's a concern. I mean, I remember growing up, coming from a poor home. The ability or the opportunity was afforded me and many others like me to leave home and go into a classroom at one of our secondary schools. And if we apply ourselves to excel academically, I'm afraid that persons coming from lower socioeconomical backgrounds may lose that advantage with the learning from home model, because of the challenge of the environment they're in, even having a device, having reliable internet. You see, you can leave home, you can leave that environment behind, and you can go off to school for 5-6 hours, whatever the case may be, on a daily basis, and you can apply yourself and excel just as much as the person coming from a better home or better environment, for want of a better word when I say better. But I think that is lost, or is in danger of being lost with the model. And I have nothing wrong against it, but it's just that I see that as a challenge for the person coming from that background, because when they're in that house and there's 7 other people in the same room and there's no quiet place to do it, and they may not even have a device, etc., that level playing field suddenly disappears and becomes very not level again.
Sorry, you raised a very important point, and you have clarified it by also pointing out to online education per se, where you're pointing out to one of the advantages that face-to-face or face-to-face mode might offer. I have a question here, which is on my list of questions, and this is how it goes. It fits into what you're. When school reopens, those students who were opting out of surely behind. I think I understand what the question means. And those who are always in class will be ahead. How are the teachers to deal with these two extremes of academic progress? Now, I understood the question to be really pointing again to the fact one size can't fit all, and that many of our students come from environments which really not conducive to the kind of learning that we want to encourage them in. And therefore, we have to make the assumption that if we ever return to the classroom, that there's going to have to be some remedial teaching. Something has to happen. Otherwise, some students are going to be left behind. But in any case, as our intervener was just saying a few minutes ago, in a poor family many years ago, I know that well, that when you got into that school environment, you were not at home anymore. And when you're not new at that school environment, there were things that you could do leaving that. Many people were elevated background by being in the school environment. I know, and I'm not going to say much more after this because we need to get here the others, but I know at the University of the West Indies, some years ago, as Dean in the Faculty of Humanities, I interviewed a student at the university who had come to her problem, her delivery, her verbal delivery was pretty bad. And I immediately recognized when I invited her in for an interview what the problem was. The problem was that she was living in a home environment where there was no attention to standard English, where all of communication involved the broadest and rawest Bayesian dialect that you could think. And she could not separate that. She could not escape that difference to her life. And I had to take her in hand. I mean, I had to assist her in her finding her to deal with that problem. So yes, the face-to-face environment also offers some advantages, but that is not to say that the online education may not also offer some modalities that can assist the students. There's somebody else, I think, who wants them just giving that person opportunity. We're on the last lap. 10 minutes, last lap. Is there? Thought it's just someone whose picture turned up a few minutes. I thought it's someone who really wanted to make a comment. If not, we can spend the rest of the evening. We could discuss this from now till midnight. But the fact remains that I think our panelists have given us a number on the whole question of online education. We've also heard from some more our students who by and large seem to be fairly well equipped to handle the problems of online education, but at the same time, they're also introduced to some of the problems. Dimitri, for example, spoke about the need to have teachers interaction, which he thinks, like based on what I remember him saying, he thinks is a bit absent from the online mode. And it does not say we can't achieve some level of interaction in the online mode, but he's pointed as a problem. Then there are the physical problems and the social problems involved that need to be addressed. And then our technical persons were also pointing to the fact of the quality of some equipment that we use that creates a bit of a problem. Maybe that may be also an emphasis identified. I don't know how we're going to solve that. It may well be that that schools and the ministry and teachers, parent-teacher associations may have to look at the whole question of collaborating in a kind of cooperative to pull together resources. So rather than have shop for the cheapest kind of equipment, but have them buy something of at least a better quality. I know you can't. There's some computers. I have an Apple in front I'm using right now. I have a Mac here, but I know that there's some if you want to go into Barbados to buy to the Apple shop to buy some things, you can't afford them. That's the problem. So that's where we are. I'm going to stop my speaking now, and any final comments beyond the last lap? I think I see Mr. Yes.
Pedro, yes.
Yes, go right ahead.
In every panel discussion and etc., I think there have been very valuable points that have been raised. And as one teacher said to me privately, what happens? The main person that I think would have really have that sense of what is going on in the public is not here. So coming out of this meeting or this discussion, how is the content going to feed back in to say to the required authorities, in this case, the Ministry of Education, that we need to have a discussion on a creation of a framework to address these issues. There is a lot of, and I said it before, a lot of highly educated persons in this field that can contribute, who have international experience, who are part of whatever webinars, etc., who has the support from the UN and other areas. How can we move forward from this? Because it's okay to have these wonderful discussions. So I plan as a parent now, but what happens after this? Because we address a lot of issues that I'm certain is well known, but we haven't seen, and this lockdown soon come to end, and we haven't seen much changes to improve. So how do we go far from here?
Can I come in here, Professor?
Yes, go right ahead.
No, I'm even here thinking that, we have technicians right here, right? Mr. Grant, and I'm sure others. And I look up in my left-hand corner and I see recording. I'm saying that this recording can be edited, it can be placed in video format, and it can be shared with the parties, the parties who may not be here, to see what was discussed, the advantages, the disadvantages, and the information that was given, to pave the way forward. Now, I really have to leave. That's why I jumped in here. Now, Mr. Yearwood mentioned that the stakeholders must discuss. There must be a discussion. And I'm right now common entrance teacher. Now, because of the way the common entrance is done, and I guess they'll continue to do it until something different, can be had, the children must write. So my children every other week are actually sitting and writing the common entrance. They're practicing the common entrance papers. They're following the format: composition, English, break, mathematics. Now, the correcting now is obviously would be a problem. Now, what I have done, and that's why I have to leave, I have a Zoom meeting with my parents where we are correcting the paper that was done on Tuesday. All right. So I'm saying we found ways of having them get the practice and then having the papers corrected. I am saying to Mr. Millington, let us take the information that was discussed here and find a way to share it, to get it in the hands of the individuals who will make decisions that clearly will affect going forward. Right, that's my take. But like I said, I have to leave because I have that meeting in a short while.
Well, so we were glad to have had you. To have had you here, Mr. Ward, and certainly your input was valuable, as was the input of all of the others on the panel. Let me thank the panelists for having, in my view, brought many of the issues that our teachers and our students are facing. Let me thank our students. So I assume that the organizers may want to close this session with a word or two, but let me on their behalf again thank all the panelists let me also thank those who have been, I said many of you might not have seen it, but discussion going on online by the chat. And my daughter, I saw her very vociferously there, fielding a number of questions and answering some. I saw a friend from many years ago, Brenda Jack, former member of the church there at Berea, and I said, let me also thank them for listening and offering their comments. So can I now turn over to the organizers from Berea to ask them to make any final comment and let me say to all of you, have a good evening and stay clear from COVID and his relatives. There are a lot of relatives of COVID that are surfacing in the world, to keep far from them. So organizers, can you get involved and here?
Brother Spur, Lloyd, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Could you get Pastor Hines to do the closing prayer, and you make the closing remarks?
Okay, Pastor Hines, we'll have you do the closing prayer for us, please.
Good evening. Let us pray. Happy Father, we give you thanks for the discussion. We pray, Lord, that it will create another opportunity for all stakeholders to really seriously engage, saying that we can assist not only our students but our teachers. To bless us as we continue to work together. Thank all those who have graciously accepted to share their experience and their expertise in this regard. And we pray as we look to the future that what would be discussed will be a means of igniting necessary discussions to ensure that all involved can be satisfied. Bless us all as we look to the future.